all of you for taking the time out to attend today on this topic, financial planning for children with special needs. I would like to set the tone and context of this particular session. While financial planning, the approach is the same for whether you have a special child or otherwise. There are a few things that one needs to take additional care and in terms of detailing when you're doing it for a special child for reasons that we will list down as we go through the session, go through the various slides. The objective is also to give a broad approach. So there are four things. What is the approach that we should be taking? How can we go about it? Where can we look at investment options without naming any product specifically, and when can you see the results actually falling into place? So these are the four questions for which we intend to give a sense of direction for everyone. As with a normal financial plan, it's going to be a very customized experience, and individual working out of details is required. So we may have taken on the higher end our assumptions while working out the actual illustration. So please bear that in mind, and accordingly, if you're going to do it on at your end on your own, please work it out accordingly for yourself. So these are the things that I've broadly mentioned. So let's get down to start the session. So all of you, many of you, if you have a special child, you know that it involves mainly planning for two generations, right? One for yourself, probably another kid or two kids you have who don't have any special need requirement, plus for the special child. So, and for the special child, maybe depending on the degree of disability or the conditions, it could involve a lifelong care. So broadly, it's lifelong therapy, support staff, your skilling requirements, and assessment cost. Okay. The most important, the area where parents typically tend to struggle is also in terms of prioritization. It's very difficult when you have other commitments, other responsibilities. On what basis do I prioritize for this particular child? Our experience and our take on this is try keeping it as individual, as separate for this particular thing, because at a later stage, when you have to actually plan for legacy, succession planning, trust, creation of trust, and an income stream for the child, it will be easier at that point in time. So if try not clubbing the investments that you are doing for your own goals, keep it separate for the particular child. It makes life easier at a later stage when certain decisions on how the assets would be managed in your absence comes into picture. Okay. Finally, financial planning does not involve only looking at the goals and the finances part of it. It also means, especially in such cases, being part of a network, be having a circle of friends with whom there's constant sharing of information. There's an understanding that also helps as a society for us to grow and be more inclusive and create products, create structures, create entities which will help such institutions. So if you have not yet part of it, you can reach us. We can also suggest 2, 3 individuals as well as entities who will help and guide you in the process. This also applies to legacy and succession planning. We can connect you to the right entity. We have done it in the past. So they are experts and they have been doing this for over 2 decades. So we can connect you in, especially for creation of a will or succession planning. Okay. So what are the factors to be considered? Uh, First is these are all these factors will affect the way you plan, will determine the way you plan. So the first is the nature of the child's disability. To what extent is it going to be lifelong? Will the child be able to earn at a later age? What is the scope for skilling requirements for this child? So as I said, how is it going to pan out during the different life stage? What is the life expectancy? Because as you're planning for the entire life cycle, unlike other children, you'll have to also have a fair idea of life expectancy of such children. Difficult decision, but something that needs to be thought through. As I mentioned, will the child be able to earn an income in future? So if they are able to do certain activities and tasks and they can fend for themselves, many children with different degrees of disability, we are aware, pursue arts, pursue some kind of a sport, pursue some activity through which they are able to earn their own income in some to some extent. So you may have to supplement only for the additional resources. What is the standard of life? All of us have aspirations for our children. So you may have aspirations that might, for the special child, given the conditions, there should be a minimum level of standard that you would want them to experience, whether you're there or in your absence. And how do we plan to distribute these special child assets so that their future is secure? So all these factors will come into account while you put down the details and how you approach the entire planning process. So it says the short and medium term cash flow planning, especially till the child reaches the adulthood years. There's a planning for the lifelong requirement, both when they're under parental care as well as when they move to a residential kind of a setup. Besides this, outside the child part, there are things that you need to take care so that their future is secure, and this primarily involves the insurance part, both on the life and health front. Legal and aspects, we are not experts on the legal front, but this probably takes a lot of importance, especially in this particular case. We all are aware how important a will or a legal document or a letter of intent is for any financial planning. And this is all the more in the case of a special child. We have heard stories where a sudden unfortunate demise of the parent affects the people who are left are not aware on what has to be done, how to handle the child. So all these things are very important. If you have not started working on this, please do make a small start today itself, because it's extremely important. And finally, inheritance. So let's move down to how to approach it, just for illustration purpose as well as broadly the experience. So we have taken two scenarios. 0 to 4 years is when you actually diagnose, you get to know that there is something different about this child. What is it? How do we handle it? What are the steps that we need to take? And typically from 5 to 18 years, you try skilling the child, you try creating environment for them when it's more inclusive. They also get to learn. There's a lot of development effort on developing the skills of the child so that they are more prepared to be independent as well as fend for themselves. Second stage is from the 18 to 18 plus, still probably about life expectancy, that is the adulthood stage, when the focus is more on vocational education and making them even more independent if there's a possibility of income stream planning, as well as slowly getting into the process of an inheritance planning. So we have divided it into two different stages. So let's look at how you can probably budget it. The first way is a very simple. This is for people who have not started doing it in a very structured manner. Suppose your annual requirement expenses for the child is about 3 lakhs, keeping a rate of return. The corpus that you need to do today is that the annual requirement divided by the rate of return. So in this particular example, it's a very, very simplified example. 3 lakhs is the corpus, 10% is the rate of return. So you can assume that the corpus that you need to start with is 30 lakhs. Okay, it's extremely simplified. We do not recommend this method because it does not factor in inflation. The purpose of any kind of planning is to factor in inflation. And if you don't do that, there is no meaning. So this is more, but it's good base to start with, especially for people, those who have not started. As you people may be more aware, especially if you have a special child, these are the different expenses that one could incur. So here, this is not an exhaustive list, but we have tried putting down most of it into over here, just for to see that what all one needs to when you actually plan. That's a point we have mentioned later also. Try getting into as much detail as possible. for especially a minor child, besides the school, a shadow teacher's cost, transportation costs, which involves also fuel expenses, the bus or the van costs, food. Many special children are given special type of food, alternate therapies. There are a lot of small expenses that could come into picture. So get down to as much detail. At every stage, the kind of expenses may change, definitely. Uh, so as if the child grows older, especially if it's a male child, after 18, you may need to keep a male attendant to handle the kid, a special educator to for further upskilling. Maybe the child has displayed some abilities in a particular domain like painting or swimming. So you would like to further improvise on that, a trainer for that. So at every stage, try putting down what are the key 3 or 4 things. Again, this is just an exhaustive, this is not fully exhaustive, but these are broadly the things that one would like to look in at the different stages. So in our illustrative example, we are coming down to that. We have assumed that there's an early intervention, that the child, that the parents have managed to figure out what is it that the condition of the child at age 2 itself. So we're generally walking you through the 3 different life stages: minor, early adulthood, and parental early adulthood under parental care, and adulthood under residential care. Okay, so these are the 3 different stages. We have assumed a life expectancy of 85 years. Assumption is that there has been no planning done till stage, and also the other assumption is we are assuming if it's something like an SIP, it continues for lifelong. So that's a big assumption that we have made. Accordingly, do your own working. There are some aspirational goals which we are increasingly seeing parents take, and that's very nice. Something like a vacation goal or so on and so forth, which has not been factored in. Okay, so broadly, this is each one's the kind of therapy you go for, the therapist you go to, the institute you go to, the number of doctor visits varies for each one of you, but this is the broad assumptions that we have worked under. So assuming in a minor stage your child is between 2 to 10 or whatever below 18, assuming a quarterly for one doctor visits, so average cost is 2000, comes to about 8000. Like that, we have put down therapy costs, attendant costs, inclusive school costs. So in this inclusive school costs, I have not factored in shadow teacher. I get to hear from parents that this is a must nowadays. Somebody with a BA psychology or MA psychology kind of a qualification has to be with the child. You would be knowing better. So factor in those expenses also, transportation and food and medical. There is also, some people also would like to keep a medical emergency corpus, which we have not factored. So if you see broadly, at this particular stage, it could involve caregiving plus skilling and therapy kind of expenses plus schooling. So as from a very young age, from about 2 to 5, as a child grows older, the kind of expenses will also change. It'll be more of schooling, it'll be more of an added teacher, additional teacher to help the child with different skill sets, speech therapy or whatever it may be. So there's a lot of variability to this kind of expenses. Even though there is variability, it is reasonably easier to predict at this particular stage. Okay. Medical costs could also include alternate therapy, as I have mentioned. And we are also seeing again, you would like to, because the children probably do not go to a regular school, may not be going to a regular school. There's a necessity for some kind of a physical training. I see a lot of parents engaging someone for some form of physical exercise so that they can train the child, maybe to cycle, maybe to skate, maybe to swim, whatever it may be. Okay, so they would, that would also be an additional cost, and that would go on for considerable period of time. So try detailing it. These are the 2-3 points that I would like to specify. This is just an illustrative thing. So as you're going to start, the first year we have not assumed, because if you can see this slide, it comes to about 11 lakh 12,000 per year. This may be on the higher side. Again, this is just an indicative approach that we are showing, and not for each one of you. You will have to work out your own costs. So assuming we have to plan for the first stage, which is the minor stage, that is 2 to 18 years. If you see the expenditure, assuming inflation increases, right? So if you're going to do a monthly SIP, if in the first initial years the SIP amount may be very high, but in the later years it starts coming down. So what you plan for the 18th year would probably be only about 6,000 per month. So maybe the first few years you'll have to think through about how the lump sum requirement will be done, or what are the expenses I can be flexible with, or what is it that I can delay at a later stage. And you can set up some kind of an SIP or a monthly investment pattern, which will not be very burdensome. If you actually see the second row, where we have entailed what would be the kind of monthly investment to reach that kind of a goal in that many years. Okay. Annual investment and one-time investment is also mentioned, and we have assumed 6% inflation. Now, the more important question is, I know my cost, I know my expenses, I know how things are going to change, but where do I put the money is where I'm not very sure. Typically, what we would say, see, if it's a 1 to 5 year kind of an expense, one for the one first and second year, you should be looking more along the lines of debt. Those aware of all these financial instruments are also aware that debt may not be very tax efficient, but it still works in this particular case, because you, as with other short term goals, you cannot play with the capital. So have a system in place where you do either an RD or an FD or a monthly income corporate bonds. This is an not very highly utilized segment of investment avenue. There are plenty of monthly income corporate bonds, maybe with AA rating or so, that you can utilize to generate a stream of cash flows, at least to meet the therapy costs or the attendant costs. Part of it. It's not going to solve all the financial requirements. You could also look, if it's for a 1 to 5 year time horizons, look at mutual funds, debt and hybrid. Ideally hybrid, because they're a lot more. So this stage, it has to be a combination of an SIP or lump sum probably any bonus or any big receipt that you get intermittently. You could utilize it for these investments and set up an SWP where there is a monthly outgo. For a lot of SWP requirements, we suggest hybrid funds. After 1 year, up to it qualifies as a equity mutual fund. I'm talking about a mutual fund specifically, a hybrid fund, where up to 1,25,000 of long-term gains is tax exempt also. So you can also make it tax efficient. So for this time period, look at a combination of debt and equity. More of debt for the first 2 years, and for the third year onwards, you can look at hybrid funds within various categories. You have equity savings, you have dynamic asset funds, you have aggressive hybrid funds. So there are many options depending on your risk profile. Hybrid funds also require a time period of at least 2 years for it to grow. So you have this combination. Above 5 years, very safely, you can look at hybrid and equity mutual funds, as well as try creating sources of tax-free income. You have insurance products where you get a life cover as well as a tax-free income for a considerable period of time. They cater to both children's requirements as well as for our retirement cash flow purpose. Okay, so reach out to your insurance advisor, or you can come to us, or you can go to your financial advisor. They are guaranteed tax-free income options. Okay, they help you plan smartly also. So there are a few things that you need to take care when you are planning for in the minor stage. According to me, this stage is, especially if your child is still a minor, is the most important, because you, like any other financial planning, even here you set the base for a long-term planning at the adulthood stage, when they are in the residential setup. So first, look at, there are tax efficient ways you can manage through hybrid options and insurance. So explore that. When you're trying to augment your life cover, we'll come to the insurance part specifically, but when you're trying to augment your life cover, try having a combination of insurance plus investment. We normally do not advise or subscribe to in a very big way combining insurance investment in other financial planning cases, but in this particular, when you're doing it for a special child, it is good. Try combining both, because it also augments your life cover. At the same time, you have a tax-free source. Okay, the third and most important point, any All of us cannot afford to have that kind of lump sum resources available to be able to plan for the next many years. But the good news is that in today's context, any investment, be it PPF, NPS, SIPs, life insurance premium, several investment avenues allow you to do it in a systematic way or on a monthly basis option. Okay, so we make use of such facilities. It's your convenience also. Some of them tell us that I know I would like to get done with this responsibility, so and you opt for annual mode of investments. But SIP is less burdensome and also helps you plan better. So every investment can be made systematic. So utilize that facility, flexibility given to us. Have an asset allocation approach, have a combination of hybrid debt and equity assets, and do not go overboard with physical assets. When we say physical assets, we mean a little more on the real estate front, because one, it blocks your liquidity. For when you're planning for a special child, having a greater component in as a financial asset would work better for you than a physical asset. Even otherwise, from an asset allocation point of view, real estate blocks your tends to subdue your returns and blocks your liquidity. So when you're planning for even for the child, have a overall asset allocation approach. The foundation for the later stages should ideally be started now. Okay, so this is very important. That is why when you're planning, look for because when the child reaches the adulthood stage, you also may be in your late 40s or closer to retirement, whatever individual case may be. Okay, the ability to invest at that point of time may drastically reduce. So if your child is still young, the effort would be more in the next few years, but it is worth it because you'll be setting the foundation for a planning of readiness, which is very important, and you'll be there at for the later stages. Okay, make sure both parents are insured. Lot of times we see probably most probably the mother has to tends to leave her job, or if she's working and is into full-time care of the child, there is a cost attached to it. Forget, we are not even getting into the emotional angle. There is a cost attached to somebody, a family member taking such good care of the child. So, if in their absence, there is a lot of other additional commitments, financial commitments that you'll have to incur. So, make sure both the parents are insured. And this is also a good stage to document your child's story, not just for the child's purpose in case in your absence something happens unfortunately, but also it gives you so somebody at a later stage, even the sibling who probably will be taking care of the child, will understand the process and understand what needs to be done. So start documenting your child's story, how they have progressed, what is it that what is spent, what needs to be done, how much more needs to be done. This is good for you and good for others also who probably at a later date may have to take care of the child. So we for the short term, I mean for the minor stage, we saw that you can look at debt options, hybrid options, equity options, both from a tax efficiency angle as well as how we can set it up as an SWP. Okay. RD, I forgot to mention, you can do a simple, for those with a low risk profile, you can do a simple recurring deposit. Something as low as 100 rupees is the starting base. All of us can do much more than that. So see what works for you, but try initiating for the first 2 years as debt and the next remaining as hybrid options up to 5 years, and above 5 years you can look at equity options. Now for the long term, where when the child is about to reach adulthood, you would like to have some corpus ready at that point in time also. So even for a special child, you can look at all these options: a national pension scheme, public provident fund, Sukanya Samriddhi. Of course, Sukanya Samriddhi also. If it's a girl child, you would have to start before the girl child turns 10, and you can continue till they are 18. ULIP plans. Try taking a ULIP plan. ULIP plan again is a good combination of insurance and investment. Try choosing the right scheme when you're going in for a ULIP plan, and please make sure you include this rider of a waiver of premium option. Something happens to you, the child's planning should not get affected. So ensure you take a ULIP plan with a waiver of premium option. Even in other insurance products, you will have a waiver of premium option. So make sure you utilize that facility. Okay. Then the last is tax-free investment options, with where you get a regular cash flow for a period of maybe 10 years or 20 years or 30 years. You can plan it accordingly. You can reach out to us. So it typically involves paying premium for about 10 to 12 years. There could be a deferment years, and from the year in which you start, you can start getting the cash flows. It is tax free. The good thing about it is you lock in interest rates based on today's interest rates for the next 30 to 40 years. Fine. These were the tax free options that I was talking about. On the non-tax free side, you can look at bonds. I just mentioned that this is a segment that not many people have explored. So there are bonds with varying maturities. So you know when probably you will need to make the next big corpus requirement. So if you have the ability, try investing it into bonds. This will also work if you are not of a very high risk profile and you would like some safety of return. There are good, even today's context, even after RBI has reduced the interest rates, you still have good corporate bonds which give you an actual yield or actual return of maybe 8.5%, 9%. So post-tax also it's 6% plus. So explore that as to match corpus requirement at different stages. This was so we have finished the minor stage. Tara, am I audible? Yeah, okay. So we'll come to the adulthood or the parental care stage, which is like I have assumed it as 19 to 35 years. It could vary from again from family to family. So this my assumption is 19 to 35 years. So typically, if you see the cost, the structure, the type of cost structures completely change when you move here. So from a therapy cost to food to schooling kind of structure, you move to more of an attendant cost, somebody to depending again on the degree of ability of the child. So each one is on a different spectrum. Depending, you may have an attendant cost. You may have to be involved in some vocational education for the child, food and medical expenditure. Food and medical expenditure, my experience is that I've seen with parents, it may necessarily be an additional cost and may not be to this extent also, but there are a few things that you take care. So that will also be some kind of a savings, both at the minor stage as well as at the parental care. Maybe not a special specified dedicated cost that you would incur, but maybe here there are a few things that you will have to take care of. Okay, so my assumption is on the higher side of 15,000, may not be the case, is what I'm trying to drive. So here one thing, see, if you see in the minor stage, because we were starting immediately, we immediately could arrive at what is the SIP requirement or annual requirement. And but here, because assuming my child years today, which is my assumption for this particular illustration, my adulthood starts when the child is 19, from 19 to 35 years. So I'm planning for a cost structure which is much ahead. So this 25,000 cost is today's monthly cost. Vocational education, 25,000 is today's monthly cost, right? So on an annual basis, my total expenditure, if my child is 19 years, today's cost is 7,80,000. Now, this factor in inflation, which is why this table on the right says, if today my cost is 7,80,000, after 17 years, my child is 2 today, so when it's 19, so after 17 years, factoring in 6% inflation, the cost will be about 21 lakhs. This is for this number, 7,80,000. You have your own assumptions or you take the help of someone who can help you with that. You'll have to factor in inflation and then you again work backwards. So if in cost on 20, in their 19th year is 21 lakhs and from 19th to 35th year, I need so much money. What could be? We have worked it out. It's actual working out in Excel. I'm just showing it to you for illustration purpose. This is what we have actually done and checked it ourselves. And the same numbers have been put in the PPT also. Okay. So broadly, Given these assumptions, your corpus required to plan from the 19th to the 35th year will be about 2.45 crores. So this is the lump sum investment, annual investment or monthly investment that you may need to make to plan for the later ages, right? Again, I'm reiterating the point. When the child is minor is where the most of the planning needs to be done so that you are more comfortable in the later years, right? So start as early as possible, start a dedicated SIP for this child, for the child with the special needs, so that you don't mix the finances. So and in this particular stage, a lot of corpus building would typically be done. So what you need to work on is how you're going to utilize those funds. Is it going to be systematic withdrawal? What you could look at is creating an income stream, because even if the child is skilled, they may be earning something, but probably you may have to supplement that income. If the child may be earning X amount, maybe their monthly expense is X plus some 10,000. So the 10,000 has to be supplemented. So you can start looking at annuity options. You have immediate annuity options. So when you're taking an annuity, also work it out in such a way. I don't know, I'm not very sure if you can take it in the child's name. In your name, make sure you do it with for in the parent's name who may not be in the taxable net, because annuities are taxable. Okay, you set up a structure for fixed deposits with annual auto renewal option. So these are the small things that you can do to keep creating an income stream. So through your FDs, you will keep getting some interest. Through the annuity, you will keep getting some interest. You would have created a corpus by way of mutual funds or whatever, debt mutual funds or hybrid mutual funds. You can start setting up an SWP. So a significant part of the cash flows you can manage from these different sources. Fixed deposits, again, you need to work out in a tax efficient manner and in whose name you're doing for the annuity and fixed deposit options. Okay. The last stage is budgeting external care from 36 to 85 years. Now, this is almost a 50-year time period. This is again my assumption that when the child is 36, around 36, the parents are also old. So they may have to start thinking, managing the child, even if you have had it may not be very easy. So that's when the step to start considering a residential setup will come into the picture. So you will have to, it's a quite a long time period that you need to plan for. The range of residential in units available, I'm given to understand, can start from as low as 20,000 a month, can go up to about 6-7 lakhs. So affordability, depending on your aspiration, what you want to do for your child, you could look at a thing. I have assumed here for an illustration example, 1 lakh. Okay. Some people like with the earlier instances, people would also like to keep a good medical emergency corpus, even if the child has a health cover. So here my assumption is 20 lakhs. Well, I've not taken that into account. It is more to tell you that this is also something that you could look at. Having said that, this medical emergency corpus is something that you can build over a period of time. Like if you may put the child around when they're 35 to 40, you need to have some corpus. You can start it much earlier, maybe 10-15 years earlier. Okay, so I'm not including this in the cost. This is also a stage where the income streams need to be a lot clearer than even when they are under parental care. So on the right hand side, we have again shown with inflation. Okay, the whole reason why the right hand side table is there is because I'm assuming my child is still only 2 years old, but I'm planning for a longer time frame, right? So 12 lakhs today is not going to be 12 lakhs. Annual cost of a residential setup is not going to be 12 lakhs. So you'll have to factor in inflation also. One more thing, very important. There are especially I'm based out of Bangalore. There are a lot of residential units in Bangalore which take care of children with special needs, which also insist, I am told, that the parents should also be staying. And so there's a purchase of property within their own premises that needs to be done. Again, it's very individual. It depends on what you choose, what you opt for. But just keep this in mind that you may have to look into such a setup or such a arrangement also for your child at a later date, right? It's difficult for you to predict what kind of a thing, but maybe some kind of corpus, if you have the leeway, if you have the capability or ability to do that, you may consider this also. So at this stage, what is important is you have some cash flows coming in. You may have done those insurance, tax-free income options. Your hybrid mutual funds or equity mutual funds can be used for SWP. Besides that, you could look at some, maybe if you have one property more than the self-occupied one, you could look at linking that rental income proceeds of this to the child. Is again some kind of an annuity. The last step, last point, reverse mortgage. I have only mentioned it. Use it as a last resort. Okay, it works if you happen to have plot land and many residential houses, which many people tend to have, but don't have too many liquidity options. Like all this money is tied up into all these assets. Okay, advisable as a last resort, because there's a lot of complexity also involved in a reverse mortgage. While you'll get the cash flow for 20-30 years, in your absence, who will take back the possession of the house by paying the cost, is all factors that you need to consider. What will happen in between if there is a demise? So the yield is also not very high in a reverse mortgage. I am put this point only to say, in case there is not too much of planning done, you could look at this as one of the options in case you have an additional asset. Okay. So finally, few takeaways. When you're planning any financial planning, the whole purpose is to handle this devil called inflation. So inflation is a reality. I'm given to understand, even for typical expenses of a special child, the inflation range is between 6 and 10%. Accordingly, factor it in your projections. Second important point, break down your expenses as much as possible. You may think fuel expense is okay, it's not pinching me so much, but if you add on to over many years, it could arrive at a bigger number. So be mindful of that. Try not to be too asset heavy, not too much into real estate or not too much into FDs. Real estate, because it tends to bring down your overall returns on what assets you are getting. Like with any other financial planning, if your overall corpus is not earning between 7 and 9%, you're not getting that extra delta to build the corpus. Okay. Similarly, fixed deposits, for a short term requirement, FDs are good. For creating a cash flow, they are good, but do try seeing if you can manage it in a more tax efficient manner. In the investment is in the name of person who's not under any kind of tax liability. Don't put too much into FD. Hybrid options are better. They may not be risk free, but they are at least low risk and slightly better returns than an FD. Okay. Um, Very important. When you actually start planning, getting overwhelmed with the numbers, the intent is not to overwhelm you, it is to guide you to make a start. Just make a start. You can start small, as with other instances also. So just don't get overwhelmed with the initial numbers. Your will increase, ability will increase, so slowly build on it. Enroll into a network, we already covered. And yeah, so these are the few points that we would like you to be aware of and have cognizance of while planning for the child. So when you're deciding on the investments, be mindful of your risk profile. What is it that you need to do for the different time horizon goals and for the different type of goals? You need to understand your risk profile. Am I very aggressive? Am I conservative? If I'm conservative, I'm going to get lower. That means I need to invest more to reach the same goal corpus. So sometimes why you need to understand your own risk profile is also to have a reflection. Probably you need to be flexible somewhere. Maybe for the short term you be very safe, but for the longer term you need to take some risk in a structured and disciplined manner, so that you're able to arrive at corpus. So along with other things, it was also important for you to have a sense of what is my risk profile. Am I being too cautious? Am I not trying? I have the capability, I can invest much more. This is a case we see very often. People can invest a lot more, but they don't, they're very happy with FDs and all that. Even they either they are not aware of the tax efficiency part, or they just have that feeling of safety. Okay. But when you're planning for a special child, you need to probably be flexible, understand the risk reward profile of the different investments. My colleague Tara will be sharing this presentation with all of you. So just have a sense on what is the risk, what is the returns, what is the taxation of the different investment avenues, and when would it work. Okay. Instead of keeping too much money in a savings bank balance, look at a liquid fund or low duration fund. Look at dynamic bond funds if your duration is more than 1 or 2 years. Look at corporate bonds. Again, I'm repeating, it's a segment that people don't look at. Annuity is another option, but the problem with in India, we don't have annuity linked with inflation, but you do have in tax-free income options. It's a recently introduced feature by some vendors, life insurance vendors. So look into that. Payouts are not indexed to inflation, and it is good if you are of a low risk profile. Okay. The other issue with annuity, while it is good to create some stream of cash flows, is your corpus is locked up for life. You don't get back that money. So be aware that before you block in too much liquidity into it. The public provident fund, Sukanya Samriddhi, as I mentioned, please have a small allocation to it. The reason why we say this is because very unlikely that these investment avenues will ever go out of the tax-free net. They're also a political vote bank thing. So good to have some allocation. PPF today, even today, gives you 7.1%. If you have observed, the rate of return on a PPF has not changed for the last 4 to 5 years, but unlikely that this particular investment avenue would be meddled with too much, and it will continue to remain tax-free, similar with Sukanya Samriddhi. The other option as you move up the risk profile is hybrid equity funds, your pure equity funds, high dividend yield stocks. Those who can get into a PMS or can have a share portfolio, do that, because you will get a regular dividend income stream. While yes, on a 1 crore portfolio of shares, maybe the dividend yield is 3% only. It's going to be 3 lakhs, but at least a part of the cash flows is taken care of when you're creating a stream of cash flows for the child. PMS, in case somebody has that kind of a corpus where they can allocate 10 to 15% on a PMS front. So these are the options. You could just have a look at it more from for your understanding and the rates of returns. Now, coming to other important aspects of overall financial planning, we strongly recommend a whole life cover for both the parents. Mostly, I think even in today's context, between the private vendors and LIC has several products which give you a whole life cover option. There are a few private insurance players, specific products which are given, but it's a lot more prevalent in LIC. And this is one good thing about them, even though their premiums are much higher. Ideally, good if you can take a whole life cover. Term cover, have a simple term cover if you're not opting for a whole life cover, because it could be cost effective. If premiums is something that is sensitive for you, you also have joint life options. Okay, this is again a cost effective option. So it typically works that if on the demise of the first person, it automatically the cover moves to the second individual. Try looking at riders also, like a critical illness rider and an income protection riders. These are the only most two relevant that I see. So there is one more which is very commonly taken, accidental death benefit, where you get an additional cover. But for when you're planning for a special child, I think you could look at these two. But be aware that this any rider increases the premium cost. So accordingly, you have to choose the policy. You can also determine whether your life cover right now is sufficient or not. This is a very, very simplified way of calculating it. How much corpus is required in case something happens to you? How much corpus would your spouse or somebody need to take care of the child's needs? What are the investments available? You may be getting a term cover from your organization or any other place, and net how much is do you need, right? These are the other on the health cover front. Increasingly, we are seeing people, private players, especially giving health cover for children with special needs. This is from the government. The health cover is up to 1 lakh, and the premiums are very low. So definitely have this as one of your options. This is provided by the government or available in all the states barring Jammu and Kashmir. This is for people in the below poverty line. Swavlamban health insurance, again provided by the government. If you know of some person, Burmese or something who working for you, you could probably sound out to them in case they have a special child. And these are just, I would request you to do your own thing. Probably we can find out more details for you if you reach out to us. But we have come across these specific insurance policies from United Insurance as well as Bajaj Alliance for children with special needs. So you can look at this for option. I also know of many parents who have taken a normal floater policy. I mean, you don't need to specifically go for a special child one. They have taken a normal floater policy. If the degree of disability is not very high, they have been included in the floater policy. So, if not anything, just ensure that your special child, you have a floater policy with a super top up in place so that some kind of a health cover is available. Other insurance schemes that also that you can consider is one is professional liability insurance, especially if you have a business. There is a loss of income due to seasonality of business and all that, and there's a disability insurance, loss of income. This is a point we mentioned even earlier. So don't take, so please take a health and life cover, a basic health cover and a life cover very seriously. These are non-negotiable, especially in the case of a child with special needs, because the commitments are lifelong and not only up to a certain age as with other kids. Okay. General guidelines for investment. Okay, debt mutual funds since April 1st, 2023, due to change in budget rules. Now, any gains on your debt mutual funds or debt funds are taxable at your current income tax slab rate. They are not very tax efficient, but from an asset allocation point of view, it is good to have a small part. So, but be aware of how it impacts you on the tax front. Hybrid funds, here we are referring to, you could look at hybrid, and even NPS is a hybrid fund. So look at that as an option, or hybrid mutual funds. They help you match your risk profile. At the same time, returns are better than debt options. Please do have some allocation to PPF, Sukanya Samriddhi, NPS, EPF as mentioned earlier. In this particular case, when you're planning for a financial planning for a special child, insurance combined with investment is good because it augments your life cover. At the same time, you have some kind of a regular cash flow. So these are points that we have I've already spoken about, but no harm in going through it one more time. Most investments can be planned as a SIP on a monthly basis. Try stepping up your investments as much as possible. We have seen you can calculate it at your end also. A simple step up by even 5% can create a huge difference in the eventual corpus that you are going to create. Strike a right balance between liquidity and lock in. Be careful. While insurance plus investment is good, too much of anything is not good again. So before you lock in your money into real estate, insurance kind of products, be aware what is also my liquidity requirement. Can I afford to keep and so much money in a lock-in kind of instrument for a very long time period? Strike the right balance between risk and returns. Some goals require an informed risk to be taken, which is the point which I mentioned while showing you about self-risk profile, right? While you may be a very conservative person, you probably need to be flexible for some long-term objectives. Especially if your child, you have plans to put them in a residential setup after 20 years or so, they entail high costs. So for that, the kind of returns you need to earn is high, so the risk you need to take will also be high. So be flexible in your approach, be well covered on the insurance and life front, and try building a passive source of income, either by way of dividends or tax-free income cash flows through an insurance product. Whatever it is, try being building a tax-free source of income. Government benefits, there are plenty, but my understanding, limited understanding, I will say, you probably may be more aware of this, and I would appreciate if you give me the inputs also, is that every state government gives you allows a monthly pension to be given. Based on my interaction with certain parents of special children, if it is done physically, it is better. I had brought this topic in an earlier webinar also, after which very limited research done by me. It is good if you visit the social welfare department of the respective state government, submit the application form. Then there are documents that they would ask, like your disability proof, certificate, and typical other documents like your age proof, bank details, and so on and so forth. The process takes anything from 3 to 6 months. While if you go to any website, it says 1 to 3 months. My understanding, based on my interaction with parents, it's longer. But the point that I'm trying to convey is many state governments provide a monthly pension for children with special needs. It may not change a lot of things for you, but it is an inflow. It could be 1,800 only, 1,500 only, but it will at least meet some part. So you please put in that effort to apply for it. Better if you do it physically, go actually to the social welfare department and process it, right? I know Karnataka definitely gives. I know Tamil Nadu gives, and I know I understand the incentives of pension offered by Tamil Nadu is much higher than what even Karnataka gives. So each state is different. Haryana, I think Uttar Pradesh has a specific scheme called Divyang or something. Haryana also gives. So these are four states I'm sure about. Maharashtra has. So, depending on the state in which you are present, please visit the social welfare department or the nearest taluk, and you may get the details. So, last part we come to is the legacy and succession planning. Of course, there are four options. One is leaving legacy to the child, which most of us will not do. Leaving legacy to a family member, which, if you really trust somebody, you can look into it, but that trust factor should be there. Trust too obviously is not recommended very highly. Leaving legacy to a trust, this is a developing line. Many people are creating trusts and structures so that all income flows to that particular trust structure and there is no disturbance. The assets are managed a lot more efficiently. And leaving legacy to an institution. So the first, second, and the fourth are first, second, we will let's not talk too much about it. Fourth is a developing trend. It's there in certain developed countries, but it's not there to a great extent in India. So the most practical combination as on date is leaving legacy to a trust, where the trustees, ideally, if it's good if it's a family member, a combination of a family member and a friend or some other person from that particular entity itself. Okay, so you need to work that out. A friend of mine, she has taken her sister, her husband's sister, and a friend as a trustees in case something happens to them. So, if you need assistance with this, if we are repeating, we can connect you to an agency. Have a will must for any type of financial planning because it helps in solving a lot of issues. It avoids disputes. It at least helps in reducing the disputes that could come into picture. Have a letter of intent, very extremely important, because at least the person who's going to take care in your absence knows what like in the beginning of the session also I mentioned at every stage it is good to document. The person who may take care in your absence will have a sense, will have an idea on how to approach the child's needs, how to justify the good care even in future, whatever you have managed to do till date. Okay, so please make a will, register the will. Again, it's good if you register the will. While it is not legally mandatory, it is good if you register the will. Okay. have a sense on, depending on your religion, which succession laws apply in case you don't have a will. That's very important because the Hindu succession laws are different from the Christian or the Muslim succession law. So there are slight variations. So depending on your religion also, you need to have a sense on where the assets will go if you do not leave a will. Okay, this is how private trust works. So if you're going to go in for a trust structure, it's a separate legal entity. There are no individual owners. You can name the special child as the beneficiary and you will appoint trustees as for managing the trust. And who can be the trustees? As we just mentioned, it could be your friends or relatives. And who can contribute to the trust? Anybody can trust. It can be relatives, it can be the sibling, it can be the parents, whoever it is. And you can create that to manage both movable as well as immovable entities. Okay, what is the broad, very basic difference between a will and a trust deed is? A trust deed is for immovable properties also. Will is typically for, will is more of a written kind of an agreement and can be informal also. A trust deed is a more regulated structure. Okay, I am not dwelling too much into this because we are not experts. If you need help in this, we will connect you to the right person. Also, power of attorney and guardianship is another important aspect. The day the child turns 18, please take formal legal guardianship of the child. Just because your parents, you do not become the legal guardian, please ensure that you take legal guardianship of the child and a general power of attorney. So these are the broad guidelines for legacy planning. Have a letter of intent, appoint a legal guardian. You try making a will if you have not started. Look for residential support. And you can utilize the residential support thing also for creation of a trust, appointment of a trust and trustees, and funding of trust. Taxation benefit, unfortunately, there are not too many. There are under section broad ATT sections. These are the benefits that are available, depending again on the type of disability that you may incur. So if you're not doing this, but this is also under only the old regime. I am not sure if I stand corrected, it's applicable even under the regime, but my understanding is these benefits are also available only if you're opting for the old regime. Good to have and avail. All of you, many of you with special children will be having this certificate, the disability certificate. There are travel concessions in air, rail, and bus if you have a child with special needs. And for the monthly pension, look up the National Trust site that has the details. I tried, very honestly, I tried doing my own search. There is not too much information state-wise available. While I did get information for Karnataka and Tamil Nadu, but for the other states I did not get, so that's the reason I did not put it here. And claim a pension for a special child, please visit the social welfare department of the respective government and would request you to submit the application. These are some well-known organizations. In Bangalore, we know more. If somebody is based out of Bangalore, you can reach out to us and we will try helping. Yeah, so coming to the end of it, thank you so much for your time. I hope it was useful and there was some takeaway. If you need any assistance with your financial plan, reach out to us. We are a 23-year-old entity. Our main forte and core and butter is on the financial planning front, and along with that, we help people with the right investment based on your financial goals as and when you require. It's close to a 60-member team with 5 branches spread in key cities of the country. And we manage, in today's context, it's almost 3,000 plus crores. So if there is anything that you need, you could reach out to us. My colleague Tara will be sharing the PPT as well as the details. You could reach out to her or me or our team for further assistance.